Hello. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Johari window. This would be a mental model of self-reflection and shared understanding. Communication can be a tough challenge, especially when the basis of communication is a set of shared reference points that is limited. Joseph Luft and Harry Ingham set out in 1955 to examine how to extend this area of shared understanding. The model they produced is one of the most powerful in the toolkit, which is the Johari window. Luft named it from a contraction of their first names, Joseph and Harry, hence the Johari window. The window has 4 panes, and it is derived from the knowledge or lack of it that we have about ourselves and that others have about us. What I'm reading to you, or what I just recently read to you, is coming from the trainingjournal.com, May 2008. They have a good resource of a handout that can explain this a little better. I will be referring to that throughout my presentation. This is a series of articles that examine learning models from Dr. Mike Clayton. As I move forward here, I'm going to talk to you about how the window appears, how it works, and how ultimately it can be a benefit to us. You'll notice in the top left, there are 4 panes, as I said earlier. In the top left is what's called the open area. Sometimes it's called the arena. And it is what we know about ourselves and the people around us know about us. It's a shared knowledge, and it is the basis of effective communication when you're in a group. And when you're in a relationship, maybe your spouse or anything else. Luft and Ingham worked from the assumption that the more of our life that is in this quadrant, the better our relationships will be. So, that means basically the larger our open area, the better we're going to do. I have a little bit of a contradiction to that later. Not necessarily a contradiction, but a statement about how I don't believe our open area can ever fill the entire Johari window. Hence, one pane cannot be the entire window. So as we move around this window, we see the bottom left pane is the hidden area. And that's the information we keep from the world. In the context of my relationship with you, it is what I have not revealed to you about myself. This quadrant can also sometimes be called the avoided area. It might be very trivial things like I enjoy movies, or I'm a Packer fan, or whatever that might be. But it can also be something that's extremely and deeply personal. So as we move to the top right, the purple area there is called the blind area or the blind spot. And this is what the people around us are able to recognize, habits, characteristics, but that we ourselves are oblivious to. These can both be strengths and weaknesses. This is the area, in my opinion, that can be the scariest when it comes to the Johari window. Finally, there's the area in the bottom right known as the unknown area. These are the things that neither we or people are aware of. They might be things that are repressed. They may be things that we're afraid of, or we've pushed down over the years. Many times they're capabilities that we're not aware of, and that's our goal to get to create those communications in our relationships, to be a better coworker, and to be able to bring more to the table. It is to be said, and Dr. Mike Clayton says this, that if there are things that are repressed that do come out through this process or through your self-discovery, it is important to make sure you address those with the appropriate people, qualified therapists, and so on. So how does this whole window work? I've described it to you, but I haven't really explained it. What happens is the middle area right here moves. This vertical axis and this horizontal axis either move right or left or up or down. And what that does is it expands our areas, or the windows. So as we move forward, as the vertical axis moves to the right, this is a result of feedback. And this is things that other insights that others have about us. that we take, and basically what it means is we are increasing our unknown of ourselves and the known to others. So what it does is we're basically increasing what we know about ourselves. By getting the feedback from other people, we are decreasing our blind area. Now, what's interesting to know about that is as this axis moves to the right, as this axis moves here to the right, obviously our unknown area gets smaller. That is by default. But what is interesting about that is our hidden area actually gets larger. So what happens here is we're creating more that we know about ourselves, which means that we have more that is unknown to others. I hope that makes sense, and I'll continue to talk about this as I move on. Now, as our horizontal axis moves down, this is called disclosure. This is what I am telling you about myself. So you are learning that my unknown to others obviously is getting smaller. Again, if just this horizontal axis here moves down, my blind area is now getting bigger. So what's unknown to myself may get larger also, because I'm disclosing different behaviors, different things that I'm oblivious to, but you're learning about me. Hence, my blind area is getting larger, but my hidden area is getting smaller. Of course, in both cases, the unknown area gets smaller. Our ultimate goal is for our self-discovery to create a smaller unknown area. So we want to receive feedback from others, take that, learn, and understand more about ourselves. We want to disclose as much as we can or are able to others to decrease our hidden area, and ultimately decrease our unknown area. And again, according to Luft and Harry Ingram, basically our goal is here, their limitation or their thought was that as small as you can make the unknown area, the better our relationships will be. I think if you think about a marriage or a relationship in that, like with your spouse, I think that's a very true statement. To say my spouse knows more about me probably than I do is very true, but she knows my unknown area is very small with her. And that brings us to to another point of the fact that our Johari window looks different depending on the situation that we are in. I'll talk a little bit about this then as I move forward, but I hope I've understood or explained this a little bit as to how this Johari window works. And it's important for as we move forward to understand some examples. Okay, so the ideal is where we're going to decrease our unknown area. And so what we want to do is we want to get as much feedback, as I said earlier, disclose as much of ourselves as we can, and again, according to Ingham and Luft, this is our goal, to create as the smallest unknown area we can. My distribution isn't very good here, but I would anticipate we try to get a smaller hidden area and a smaller blind area. But this is an example as to how that open area opens up and our unknown area gets smaller. So our goal is to move that middle vertex to the bottom right corner. So here's another example of when we're in a different position and our Johari window looks different. The interviewer. The interviewer is someone, you could probably be either way, interviewer or interviewee. As you're interviewing someone or you are the interviewee, your open area is small. Your hidden area is very large. You're just meeting each other. You don't know each other. You don't know what's those different types of things. So your hidden area, or your part that is unknown to others but known to yourself, is of course very large. You're receiving a lot of feedback, so your blind area, you're trying to give also feedback, so your blind area decreases. What is known to others, but what is unknown to yourself, kind of actually increases. It gets smaller because you're divulging, you're getting a lot of feedback in that process. Of course, the unknown area is really just the variable here. It just determines, dependent upon what happens with your blind area and your hidden area. Another example would be the bull in a china closet, which I like this example of explaining how the Johari window can be a negative, in my opinion. In this case, you have a smaller open area again, which is the known to others and known to ourselves. But what's interesting here is there is a large blind area, which is what is unknown to ourselves and known, or other people know about us. If you think about the bull in a china closet example, there are a lot of behaviors that we exhibit that we don't even understand or we know we're doing. A lot of people know a lot about us, but we aren't very self-aware. And that would be a good example. I see that a lot dealing with high school students. They have a large blind area. They don't see how they're behaving, but a lot of people can read them pretty well, and that can be a little bit scary. Of course, they also disclose a lot about themselves. So when they give a lot of information, there isn't as much unknown to others, but at the same time, there's a lot that's unknown to them. Of course, again, that unknown area is just kind of the variable. Now, the final example is the turtle. And a turtle, I guess I take the analogy of being someone who stays in their shell. And if you stay in your shell, you're going to basically have a small open area. You're not going to receive feedback from others to increase or to decrease your blind area. And you're also not going to disclose much of yourself, which creates a larger hidden area. Of course, the way this is distributed creates a very large unknown area, and that's obviously not what we're looking for when we're creating good relationships. Some would argue the introvert can be this way, and it may be where the introvert has to work to get out of that zone to be able to create a larger unknown area. However, in the case of an introvert, oftentimes they're very self-aware, just not willing to disclose much of themselves. The range of this model, that's the end of my presentation. I'll just leave this screen up, but the range of this model is immense, and it can be a really good starting point for a discussion about communication, relationships, and self-awareness. Obviously, that is why the Johari window can be a very popular model for leaders and trainers and facilitators and coaches. It's a way to create better relationships, and it's a mental model for people to understand where they fall on the spectrum. Where do they think their unknown area is, how big, how small, and depending on what situation you're in. Again, as I've used the example of my situation with my wife would be much different than a situation with a coworker as a situation with someone whom I just met off the street. But as a leader, we need to take into account this example of the Johari window and try to understand how we can get others to increase their open area, create better relationships, feel a little bit uncomfortable at times, but to be able to have good exploration of our organization and be able to get past some things to be able to work for the best of the group. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I hope it made a little bit of sense. And you'll see on my webpage underneath this presentation some resources you may be able to find that might give a little more explanation to the Johari window. Thank you.